Hi, hello everybody. Welcome to another exciting and adventurous class in cooking here at Basics Market. My name is Sam and I'm a chef and culinary mentor with Basics Market. And every once in a while they let me do one of these wonderful classes. So this week we're looking at a grilled chicken with peanut noodles. And this is a really great recipe to get a couple techniques down. A really exciting technique, a technique I'm excited to show you is this blender sauce because you can apply it to so many dishes and get a lot of great use out of different herbs and so forth with it. But anyway, we'll get into that in a second. We do appreciate questions and comments during the class. So if you're joining us live this evening, I guess at this point, go ahead and ask some questions, and they will be relayed to me, and I will do my best to answer them. And I guess let's get into this, right? So the first step with this dish is you want to make the sauce, which acts as a marinade also. So we're going to produce the sauce, and then we're going to use a little bit for a marinade. So you'll need a blender or a food processor is another great thing to use for this, or you could even use an immersion blender. And so we're just going to throw everything in here. We want to start with 6 cloves of garlic, and I always like to show the little trick of soaking the garlic in a little bit of water, even just for a minute or two. And sometimes if I'm really short on time, I'll just rinse the garlic under some running water, and that even helps to release the peel of the garlic and keep it from sticking to your knife, excuse me, knife and hands. So I have like 4 cloves here already done, but I just wanted to demonstrate peeling some garlic. And here, I'm crushing it up at the same time a little bit, just because it doesn't matter. It's all going to get blended up anyway, right? So I like to use the flat side of my chef's knife and just kind of push down, and then the peel should come off easily if everything goes according to plan with that water, and it did. And so that water, if it's a little bit warm, it's helpful. Okay, so we have our 6 cloves of garlic there. And we'll put that into a blender. Move this so we can kind of see what's happening there. So there's our blender with the 6 cloves of garlic, and then you're going to need a knob of ginger root as well, and some cilantro. But let's go ahead and mess around with this ginger root for a second. So ginger is just so good and in a sauce like this. And so the root, comes in all shapes and sizes. If I'm using organic ginger, I don't bother too much about the peel, the skin, what have you. There's a lot of great probiotics in the skin, and so just a good rinse is sufficient if it's organic ginger. And if you're putting it in a blender or something like this, it'll just chew it all up. But if it's conventional, or you just don't want that peel in there, a good way to peel a ginger root is just with a little spoon. And kind of the cheaper the spoon, the better, because it will have the sharper edge. And it's just the perfect tool for peeling ginger and get that peel right off, no problem. And it doesn't get into the meat of the ginger. All right, so that's a partially peeled knob of ginger. And I'm going to give that a little bit of a whack, and then drop that into our blender. And then the cilantro. So I've got one bunch of cilantro, and we're going to reserve a little bit for putting fresh onto our plate. Um, so you're going to want 3/4 of the bunch for the actual sauce, and then hold back 1/4 of the bunch. And then one neat way to wash ginger and parsley, this sort of thing, is get a big bowl, a bowl, pretty good sized bowl, put it in the bottom of your sink, run the cold water into that bowl, and then dunk and dunk and dunk. And because sometimes these parsley, parsley, cilantro, has a lot of dirt in it. And so it really gets it out, and you can see when it starts clearing up your water there. Okay, so anyway, we've got the 3/4 and the 1/4. And then this stems removed is what our recipe specifies. So really with a sauce like this, you don't need to leave the stems out. The stems on cilantro, unlike parsley, aren't real bitter. So they actually are, if you're wanting more material, the stems are fine, but I am going to follow the recipe this evening. And I'm just twisting the stems off, but I'm not too worried about having a little bit of stem in there. I think it's just fine. It'll just give me more sauce. So there we go. Got our cilantro in there. And now let's go ahead and look at some oil. So I've got here, I think tonight we're using safflower oil, which is a good neutral oil. But peanut oil would be really good in here. I've been using, I acquired a bottle of peanut oil recently, and I hadn't used it a whole lot, and I've been using it a lot lately, and I really like the flavor. Of course, this has peanut butter as well, and so if you're working with allergies, peanut allergies, you could use a different kind of nut butter and then use just a neutral oil like safflower oil, canola oil, grapeseed oil. These are all good neutral oils to use, but peanut oil does lend a really wonderful flavor. And then, so I just mixed a tablespoon of peanut oil and a tablespoon of sesame oil, and that's what I have here. And that's going into our deal there. So then we have come to some crushed chilies. So between the garlic, the ginger, and the chilies, this is a little bit of a spicy sauce. So if you want to lower your heat level, you can go ahead and reduce the amount of chilies or crushed chilies, or leave them out altogether. Or if you want to increase that heat, add more chilies, or even like a fresh chili pepper, like a serrano or a jalapeno. Maybe take the seeds out first, depending on where your heat level lies. But here we're going to go ahead and we're putting a tablespoon of crushed chilies into the sauce. All right. And next we have peanut butter, and here's our peanut to butter. This is a 1/2 cup of peanut butter. It can be crunchy or smooth. You want try to stay away from sweetened peanut butters, as that will add a lot of sweetness. And we are going to be adding some honey to this as well. All right, so next will be the soy sauce or tamari. This is a low sodium tamari we're using here. Again, looking at allergies, if you have someone with a wheat allergy, there are alternate noodles you can use. This is a noodle dish. And as far as soy sauce goes, tamari does not contain wheat. Well, conventional soy sauce is made with wheat and soy. So there's our this is low sodium tamari. Here, I think we have a question. Yes. Oh, we're using unseasoned rice vinegar because, as I mentioned, we are adding a little bit of uh, honey and uh, and we're adding honey. I miss. Well, I've got. Luckily, I have it here. Oh, here's the honey. I was like, I misplaced the honey. Um, I have honey. Um, I'm using unseasoned, and that simply there is seasoned rice vinegar out there, and that usually has a little bit of sugar and maybe even a little salt added, and it's good definitely like for some dressings and things where you, you might want a little more flavor in there. Um, but because we're creating the sweetness with this honey, and we have control over it this way, so. Um, yeah, I recommend unseasoned, but if you only have seasoned, it's going to be fine if that's what you're using. So, oh, I just wanted to mention real quick the crushed chili peppers. There's this neat um, little brand of Badia that we carry in the basics markets. There's a whole wall of them in all the markets, and these are real nice because they're like 79 cents for a bag of whatever, and it's a nice small amount. So if you're just, it's enough for a recipe plus several more recipes, but you're not sitting on 10 pounds of crushed chilies or whatever at the end of the day. All right, so let's get that honey in there. And honey, boy, I've been cleaning up a lot of honey in my own kitchen at home because I got some ants found their way in through an electrical socket, and, and they found the honey was the first thing they went for. Um, all right, and then here is that rice vinegar, and I'm just going to add that in. And then we'll see what happens when we blend all this stuff up. And maybe we'll have a sauce. Okay, so if you're using well, anything you're using for blending like this, sometimes you have to scrape down the sides, and this is such an occasion. So I'm just scraping the peanut butter down a little bit. And so here we go. We've got a beautiful green sauce. So this would, this is a cilantro peanut sauce. Quite nice. I'm just going to pour it into this bowl so you can admire it a little bit. And often if I do a dish like this, this is quite a bit of sauce. So you can gauge how much you want on your noodles. And it's nice to reserve a little bit for the table, and you can just put it in a bowl, a small bowl with a spoon, and then people can add more as you eat. I have another question. Yeah, so the question is, how long will the sauce last in the fridge, and can you freeze it? And I would say this sauce is good for, I would give it at least a week in the fridge, frozen up to 6 months. And if you do choose to freeze it, a good way to freeze a sauce like this is pour it into ice cube trays, and then you can just pop out as many as you want when you're ready to go. Or freeze it in the ice cube tray, pop them into like a Ziploc bag, and then you can pull them as you go. That's great for tomato sauce, pesto, all kinds of things. It's a good way to go. And even just like ginger garlic concoctions, and then you have a flavor cube ready to go. All right. So that's the sauce, and now what we're going to do with that is this is also our marinade. So let's grab some fresh chicken, Um, Here I've got a couple chicken breasts. You can use chicken thigh or breast for this, boneless, as you're going to be slicing this afterwards. So boneless, skinless, and let that marinade soak in. If you have the time, overnight is always best for a marinade to really get that flavor in there. But a few hours is good also. You could get this going, get your sauce done in the morning, get the marinade, and then be ready for the evening with this dish. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to take a tablespoon of sauce and then a tablespoon of water. I have a little extra water here, so no. And so we're just kind of thinning the sauce out a bit to turn it into our marinade. And then we'll just coat those chicken breasts. And I'm using the breast. Thigh is a really nice way to go with this dish, flavor-wise. Sometimes the chicken breast just presents a little nicer to fan out and so forth. What you do want to watch with the chicken breast is, of course, it wants to dry out a little bit quicker, whereas the thigh tends to stay nice and moist. Okay, so we're just going to roll the chicken breast through the marinade. And that's it. You just want to coat it really good. And that's what it looks like. This, of course, is two chicken breasts for this demonstration purposes, but 4 is what the recipe is asking us for, and that'd be for serving 4 to 6 people or so. Okay, so this can go in the refrigerator, and I would let it marinate overnight or at least several hours. So we have our sauce, we have our chicken marinating. So let's go ahead and look at when that chicken is marinated. The next step is, of course, to grill it. So I have this neat deal here, and this is a grill pan, and these are really nice for indoor grilling on a stovetop. You get some char, and you actually get like sort of a grill flavor from it. If you don't have one of these, just a nice big skillet will work. And I'm actually going to be using a big skillet to cover, towards the end of this recipe, we're going to cover this a bit. But a skillet like this, you could also use to cook your chicken in. And of course, you could do this on an outdoor grill. And we are in grilling season. I don't know that anyone wants to be standing over a grill this week, as it's over 100 degrees. But sometimes it's nice to not have the heat in your house, and so grilling, you could do this dish on a grill outside as well. But this is a nifty little device if you've got it. So I just oiled this, and you just want to brush some oil on there to keep the chicken from sticking, and let it heat up a little bit. And then I've got 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt and pepper, which is, just like a pinch of each of salt and pepper. We have a really neat ingredient. Well, there's a couple really interesting ingredients in this dish. One being the broccoli rab. And this is also referred to as rapini, and that's what it's called in Italy. And it's used a lot in Mediterranean cooking. And it is not, even though these little buds here look a lot like broccoli, it's not related to broccoli at all. Its closest relative is actually the turnip. and it does have that sort of, if you've ever eaten like beet greens, turnip greens, that sort of thing, it has that uh, some of that flavor profile going for it. It really also reminds me a lot of mustard greens. Um, it's a really interesting vegetable, real fun to eat because the you have the leaf, and then you've got the stalk, and then you've got the broccoli-like little bud deals, and I believe it's full of vitamin K, like uh, other greens, and it has a lot of great uh, nutrition going for it. And a lot of fiber. I fed some to my kids last night, and they were um, very expressive about the amount of fiber they were getting as they were chewing on it. So it does take a bit of chewing, sometimes you want to cook it. There you can just saute it. You can of course grill it like this, and you can roast it. But it's a great vegetable to get familiar with if you're not. And then the other cool ingredient here we're using is the soba noodles, and you could use any kind of noodle for this dish. Again, if you're looking at allergies, wheat allergy, for example, rice noodles would work great here, any shape or size you like. Um, this is a thin, round soba noodle, and soba noodles sometimes come in just 100% buckwheat. This one is a mixture, and often there'll be a mixture of wheat and buckwheat. But buckwheat is a seed, and it's not, again, it's not related to wheat at all. It's just like this could be a dish made up of misnomers, right? Broccoli that's not broccoli, wheat that's not wheat. Um, the dish that does exist, maybe, but we'll see. We haven't gotten that far yet, right? But yeah, so buckwheat is not wheat. It's actually a seed. It's not a grass like wheat is. And so if you're gluten intolerant, you can eat buckwheat. But again, if you're looking at soba noodles, make sure it's 100% buckwheat if you're looking for that. It looks like we have another question. Oh yeah, if you don't have the broccoli rab or rapini, you could use broccoli. You could use broccolini, which is another, which is something I believe broccolini was invented in Japan, and it is a cross of I want to say kale and broccoli, but I can't quite remember. But it's a modern invention. But it would be really good here because it has those thin stems and then the small kind of buds. Broccoli and oh yeah, so yeah. So broccoli, yes. Broccolini is Chinese kale and broccoli mixed. So anyway, those are both be good options. But really, any vegetable that takes your fancy. This again, what I really would like to stress with this dish is the technique, and so you can bring what you will to it, and don't be held back by the materials. Use what you have on hand. But this is a lovely combination if you are able to gather these ingredients. Okay, so looks like we're smoking it up here. So we'll go ahead and throw down our chicken. And there's that lovely sizzling sound. And so for this, I gravitated towards a thinner cut of chicken, whether it be thigh or breast. You want a little bit of a thinner cut so that it cooks through fairly quickly for you. And again, you could be doing this on the outdoor grill. So we're going to go ahead and, we want to salt and pepper. So what I'll do is I'll just put a little pepper and a little salt, and then when I flip them, I'll do the same. But you know, it's probably a good idea to salt and pepper in the bowl and mix it around. But either way will work. And then another neat thing we're doing here is we're using some pickled vegetables, and we have a pickled vegetable recipe card. And these recipe cards, by the way, there's this one and a whole bunch more are available in the markets, in the basic markets for free. There's a wall of recipe cards that we carefully curate, and we're always creating new recipes and doing these beautiful photographs. We're very proud of our recipe cards, and this one is really neat because it has a chia seed jam and the quick pickled veggies, really great summer recipes. So you can find, I think this one just rotated out, but it is, oh, it's still there. So this one is still in the stores, but when they do rotate out there, you can find them always on our website, basicsmarket.com, where you can also find classes that we've done in the past and skills like different knife skills and things like that. So please visit our website if you haven't already. But there's a pickled veggie recipe here, which is a nice simple vinegar pickle, a great way to preserve your summer bounty. Wow. Okay, so what I like to do when I'm grilling is kind of get a little crosshatch going. So I just do a quarter turn for a second or a minute, and then that should give us some good grill marks. And that is what's fun about this for indoor grilling. This kind of grill pan, you can actually get some substantial grill marks. I got my pickled veggies here ready to go. Okay, so while this is happening, you can boil up a pot of water, and I don't have, we haven't done a skill class on boiling water yet, but maybe we might get there one of these days. But you know, take a big pot, get it on the heat, boil up that water, and then you can drop your noodles. These noodles cook fairly quickly, about 6 minutes, the soba noodles. But just if you're using a different noodle, follow the directions on the pack. There are, besides rice noodles, there's a lot of great gluten-free noodles made out of all kinds of stuff nowadays. So I like kind of just a spaghetti style noodle would work here, or an angel hair shape. All right, so you can see we've got some nice grill marks on that chicken. I flipped it, and now I'm going to go ahead and let's pretend a little bit that I let this cook a little bit longer. And on our recipe, you're going to let it go till 163 degrees. And the only way you're going to know that information is if you have a thermometer, which is very handy. And if you're cooking meat, I would highly recommend you get a thermometer if you don't have one. These little digital thermometers are inexpensive, and they work great. And then you can see where you're at. So it's just a good way to kind of gauge the temperature of the meat. And then in the end, to make sure that it's cooked through. For chicken to be done, you want it 165. The recipe says at 163 degrees, add your broccoli rab, your rapini, rapini on there. And that's because it's going to cook a lot quicker than the chicken. So the chicken will continue to cook while your veggies are on there, on the grill. So I'm just going to kind of put these guys around. Oh yeah, real quick. One thing to, so I've rinsed this really well, and then you just want to take off the end. It does get a little tough towards the end, but it gets more tender as it comes up. So just kind of where the leaf ends is where I usually kind of trim the broccoli rabe. And this had a little parsley in it, which is pig's weed, which is edible, but this one's not in great shape. But sometimes you find that in greens, right? A little bit of something extra. It's so extra. Okay. So we've got our greens on there, and we're going to reduce the heat to low. And I might just give it a little spin because it's already, you can see the veggies are already cooking pretty nicely here. And then let's not forget our salt into the zipipa. And I'll even put a little bit on the broccoli rabe there. And then I'm going to grab my quarter of a bunch of cilantro for plating. And I've got my pickled veg for plating. We've got our sauce. All right. So here's the cover. I'm just simply using this cast iron skillet. And I'm just going to try to get everything in there. And the heat's on low. And we'll just let that cook for a minute. And we'll prepare the noodles. So for your new, oh, looks like we have a question. Yes. Yeah. You know, the question we have is, would we recommend blanching the broccoli rabe before doing this step here? And I don't think it's not necessary. You could. What that would do is really speed up the process quite a bit. It cooks really well, and it cooks fairly quickly. So I would not worry too much about that. But you might get a little more of a tender stem that way. If you do choose to blanch it, you know, just do a real quick blanch. I'd be worried about maybe overcooking with the blanch, but it would be something you could try and let us know how that goes. Okay. So noodle wise, I've got my noodles here, and I reserved a little bit of the, so you want, after you're done cooking the noodles, right? You're gonna drain them in a colander, and then you reserve a little bit of the cooking water, the noodle water, and that's you know, an age-old tradition of where you add a little bit of the noodle water to your sauce, and it helps. In this case, we're thinning it a little bit, but also it kind of binds a little bit because of the starch in the noodles. So with this dish, as I mentioned before, you can add as much sauce as you like, because this is quite a bit of sauce. So I'm going to add some sauce, and I'm going to add a little bit of the water, the noodle water, and just kind of mix it. And you want to get it to a point where the sauce is coating those noodles, and then you can decide, you know, well, I like it saucier or less saucy, but I like it just nicely coated. This is a really delicious sauce, so I mean, you know, sauce it up for sure. But as I mentioned, you can have sauce on the table as well. And then I think on the recipe, we do mention that with, you know, leftover sauce, this is great for a variety of other dishes. I just use some of this sauce with tofu and rice. And I did a similar thing where I coated the tofu and I baked it, and And then we had the sauce with the rice and tofu, and it was really good. So yeah, if you have leftover sauce, that's a good thing. So I think that's enough sauce on our noodles, and I believe we have a question. You know, I think warm. I think. The question is this dish best eaten warm or cold? And I think it's best warm, and even kind of room temperature. Like this is to me is reminiscent of an Indonesian type dish, and Indonesian food. It's meant to be that room temperature. And, you know, so you don't have to be in a big hurry to get it on the table and all that and just have it. But I think it'd be good cold. I haven't had the broccoli rabe cold. So that might be something to think about. It could be great. I just can't speak to that. But it is very nice, kind of warm. But again, yeah, I wouldn't stress out about rushing it to the table hot. You know, the idea behind that in the Indonesian cuisine and this type of cuisine is the flavors really meld at that room temperature point, and they're just you're going to taste all the flavors really well that way. All right, so we do have a bit of TV magic here, and I have some chicken breasts that I've already cooked. And so that's here. And so we can go ahead and do a plating while these chicken breasts finish up. And but I think our, you know, our broccoli rabe is looking good. And this chicken actually is probably pretty close. Let's, just for fun, let's see where we're at with it. So it's at about, it's getting there. It's about 160, and the thicker piece has a, you know, it's probably, it's like at 140. So, you know, it has some time. And in this, another good thing to pay attention, like with chicken and chicken breast, if they're not all exactly the same thickness, you know, you're going to want to pull the smaller pieces off when they're done to not overcook them. And that goes for any sort of grilling, indoor, outdoor, oven, whatever. And by the way, you could do this in the oven, or you could even start it on the grill and finish it in the oven simply on a sheet pan. And I'd recommend like 325 degrees. Just if you're pulling it off the grill, just after getting some mark and some char on it, you know, pop it in the oven, finish it that way. Or you could just do it completely in the oven, and that would be fine. You just missed out a little bit on the char flavor. Okay, let's have let's plate this. Okay, so it looks like I will be dining alone. So that's okay. I can handle that. So therefore, I'm going to go ahead and use one chicken breast. This looks like a nice one. And I'm going to slice it. And I'm going to slice it thin. And just slicing across. And of course, you could lay this out on a large platter if you wanted to present it that way in the middle of the table, and that would look really cool. Or you could do individual plates like I'm doing here. Or you could have, well, what else can you do? I guess that's your options. that's what you get. But those are two good options, right? Okay, so put some noodles there. And now this is where you get to be the artist, right? We'll put our chicken maybe right over the top, and I can get inspiration from this right here, and I don't have to look too far. Okay, Yeah, chicken is good. What do you know? All right. So put our broccoli rabe, and you know, it's a it still could go longer for sure. It would be perfectly done when this larger chicken breast is done, but it's going to be great. So there we got a little bit of that, and then here's our pickled veg. Um, put that down, get some nice color on there. And you can pickle anything. So there's that. So you could really have a great time with your color palette there. And then we've got our quarter bunch of cilantro, which I'd be splitting between 4 plates. So I'm going to take a quarter of that quarter and just put some sprigs. And again, we're removing the stems for the most part here and getting some nice spriggly action. And let's see, what else? Oh yeah, cucumber. I don't have cucumber, but cucumber would be really good. At home, I have so many cucumbers. It's ridiculous because I grew them this year, and I need to actually go home and make pickles immediately. And then we can do some sauce over the top just for fun, and you could really get out there and do the plate, do like Jackson Pollock on it, and then now you can charge $40 for this plate, customized. All right, here we go. Look at that. I think it looks delicious. Now let's do a tasting. And again, you're in charge of the saucing, and so do what you will with that. All right, I got some noodle and some chicken. Ooh. Wakes you right up. That ginger and garlic is right there, but nicely couched in all the peanut butter. Really holds it nicely, and a little bit of sweet from the honey and the tang from the vinegar. And this marinade is really good on the chicken. It tastes different once it's been cooked, and it tastes really good, but it has a different flavor from the fresh sauce that's on the noodles. So it's like you're getting 2 different flavor experiences there. And then the pickled vegetables will give it a nice tang. And then of course our guest star here, the broccoli rabe. So good. It's just very hard to describe this one for me. But I mean, again, it's very reminiscent of like a mustard green, something like that. Totally delicious. And another question. Yeah, so the question is about peanut butter and what I might recommend for peanut butter. I mean, right, today I am using Adam's peanut butter, which seems totally fine here. I use the creamy instead of a crunchy, but you could use a crunchy because it will cream out as soon as it hits that blender. The only thing I have to say about the peanut butter is you want to avoid a sweetened peanut butter or anything that's really processed, with stabilizers and fillers, stuff like that. The most natural peanut butter you can get your hands on, I would recommend. And salted is fine. But if you want to keep the sodium down, get an unsalted peanut butter, and you can use different nut butters. Um, all I, but what I was speaking to earlier about this being a great technique to learn, I'll do a sauce like this very often. I probably once a week, and it will have to do with what I've got in the refrigerator, what I've picked up at the market, or what's growing in my yard, and and then I will look at the nuts I have and nut butters, and I'll experiment with those as well. You can even throw like a handful of kind of lightly roasted nuts of some sort in it. Cashews are really good in a sauce like this. But I really would encourage you to play around like with, you know, the herbs you're putting in there and the nuts, and you can come up with a lot, you know, your own flavor profiles based upon this technique. And and I think it's just a great way to infuse fresh herbal flavors and a lot of great nutrition, um, and quickly. And you can see that all went quite fast. Um, yes, another question. Yeah. So the question is, if you do have a peanut allergy, what sort of other nut butters can you use? And cashew butter would be really good here. Um, I'd say cashew butter or almond butter are your best bets for this dish. And those, either of those would work great. And the question is, what about cookie butter? And I don't know what cookie butter is, um, but if it is a nut butter, I would say use it. Um, you know, yeah, any sort of nut butter that you like to eat, I'd give it a go here. Again, just staying away from things that have additives like sugar and so forth. Um, over. Okay, probably cookie butter is a no because that is sounds like the base of cookie dough, which probably won't work here. But it would be intriguing. Okay, I think that's what I've got for you this evening. Um, Thanks again for joining us. Um, Again, my name is Sam, and I'm here at Basics Market, bringing you delicious foods and some techniques to go along with them. Next week, we're going to be looking at a strawberry olive oil cake. Strawberries are still happening, and it's a really great summer cake. And the week after that, the following Wednesday, we're going to do some kofta kebabs, another good griller. So please join us for upcoming classes. And again, go to basicsmarket.com to look at a class schedule, see classes that have occurred. We're taping these and posting them on the website, and look at the skills videos. We have 4 locations of the Basics Market, one on Sandy Boulevard, one in Beaverton on Canyon Road, which is a meat market. We have a Basics in Hillsdale. And then we have one downtown on Lovejoy. So please visit any of these markets, pick up some good supplies, and ask us lots of questions. Thanks again. And as always, happy cooking.